going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music. Today I want to talk about these three songs right here. This is Bad Mode, this is Somewhere in Marseilles, and this is Not in the Mood, aka Kibun Janai no, all from Utada Hikaru's brand new album Bad Mode, released on January 19th, 2022. Now, if you had told me at the beginning of this year that three of my favorite songs that came out this year were going to be from a J-pop singer, I probably would have said you were absolutely full of shit. Yet last week, when a friend of mine told me that Floating Points, one of my all-time favorite producers, had produced music for the three songs that I wanted to talk about today, I immediately got excited, and over the last week, I've been listening to these songs non-stop. And today, I wanted to just briefly tell you why, if you haven't listened to these tracks yet, why you might want to check them out. So, with all that being said, yeah, let's get into it. So, a quick bit of background about Utada Hikaru. She was born in New York in 1983, and she was already primed from the start to be a sensation thanks to her father, Teruzane Utada, being a record producer, and her mother, Keiko Fuji, being a very famous enka singer, which, if you want to know what enka sounds like, kind of sounds like this.
赤く咲くのはケシの花白く咲くのはユリの花
In 1999, after the middling success of her group with her parents called U3 and another project called Cubic U, she would drop her debut album under her birth name called First Love, and it would become a smash success, eventually going on to sell over 10 million copies, and would help position her to become one of the biggest selling Japanese artists of all time, which in and of itself was already amazing considering she does not belong to a Japanese musical talent agency, produces and writes a lot of her own music, and is completely fluent in both English and Japanese. By the time Bad Mode came out in 2022, she had released 10 albums, moved back and forth between Japan, the States, the UK, and become Japan Time's most influential artist of the decade in 2010. For the album, Wikipedia had this to say about how it all came together, and that she also enlisted the help of several other producers like A.G. Cook, Skrillex, Pooh Bear, Noriaki Obukuro, and of course, the whole reason I'm here in the first place, Sam Shepard, aka Floating Points, the super genius who's released some of the finest music over the last 10 years, taking up production and songwriting duties on these three tracks that I want to talk about. And it really is Floating Points that I think really brings out both the best in Utada, but also the best in Floating Points. Simply put, I think these are three of the finest Floating Points productions that I've heard, and these are also three of the finest performances I've ever heard from Utada ever. Seriously, I am not joking when I say these are three of my favorite songs of the year, with the list probably going Not in the Mood, Somewhere in Marseilles, and Bad Mode basically being my 1, 2, 3 for 2022. There's something about the intimacy and conviction in Utada's performance across all three of these tracks, combined with Sam Shepard's absolute untouchable production genius on these tracks, that just make them honestly like god tier here. Seriously, I haven't had music like this kind of gut punch me the way that these three tracks have over the last week, and I have a strong feeling that it's gonna be like this for the rest of the year. And it really shows off three facets of Floating Point style production, with Not in the Mood being a bit more of a trip hop downbeat of a track, Somewhere in Marseilles being something more akin to some of the more club ready tracks that Floating Points has done in the past, and Bad Mode kind of splitting the difference in almost being as close to a straight up pop track that he's ever put out in his entire career. And they all have his production genius in spades. Seriously, nobody makes music sound as good as Floating Points does. The warmth, the ambience, the overall encompassingness of the synths, the strings, the drums, everything on here is just fine-tuned and so detailed and just so enjoyable to listen to that I think at this point, Sam Shepard is basically just in a league of his own when it comes to music. And even though what he's doing here really isn't like completely new ground for him, it's so fine-tuned to fit the... It's so fine-tuned to best complement all of the best characteristics of Utada that I don't see how you could get these songs to sound any better with anybody else. And it also should be stated, while there are still a few J-pop-ish things that Utada does on a couple of these tracks where there's a certain like cadence to how she sings that's very much in tune with a lot of other J-pop singers that kind of drive me nuts. I gotta say, her performances on these tracks are absolutely incredible. There is a raw emotion to the way that she sings on tracks like Not in the Mood and Bad Mode that like I haven't heard from a singer seemingly in forever. Like there is a real believability in that what she's singing about is actually what emotions she's going through. Specifically, Not in the Mood has some of the most gut-wrenching lyrics I've heard in a long time. The second half of Bad Mode is utterly fantastic, and I love the way that she's saying, I hope I don't fuck it up again. It's utterly incredible. And somewhere in Marseilles, despite being probably one of the most straightforward club tracks on here with the thumping bass and the added percussion and all of the floating points synth squelches in there, still Utada manages to reinforce the track's emotional core that all leads into this just absolutely orgasmic climax as the song continues over its nearly 12-minute runtime. Listen, at the end of the day, I don't think me just gushing about these tracks is really going to sell you on this. I will, of course, be linking the songs down in the description over on my WordPress blog because you should definitely check them out. And I really hope you do because I know I am not the biggest fan of J-pop in the first place either, but man, oh man, I cannot put into words how much I absolutely love these songs. And there's a very good chance that these are going to be my 3 favorite tracks of the year without question. And I think that's pretty much all I've got to say about it. That's going to be it for me today, folks. Thanks as always for watching. If you've listened to any of these songs yourself, please let me know what you thought about them down in the comments, as well as the other tracks on the album if you've listened to it. As well as head over to my WordPress blog, because that's where I post music links to any of the music that I talk about on this channel. And make sure you go follow me over on Twitch for Live from the Record Room. There I play a whole bunch of music like the stuff that I talk about on this channel, as well as a whole host of other stuff in my record collection that I don't get a chance to talk about on this channel. Links to everything, as always, down in the description. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!